Hey everyone, back to you to today's video. It's JMA Friday, so we're going to have a look at the weather for the coming month from the Japanese model. We'll also have a look at the CFS-V2 as well, going out for the coming month. So, yeah, this is taking us into June, this particular update. So, going off in towards the start of the summer, can you believe? It's pretty cool at the moment. It's going to be staying quite cool and unsettled for the coming week. And we'll see how long this is expected to last over the next month. Now, before we get on that, just to mention the ads, there's links to articles on our pages at gadswebbiz.com. Have a browse through the widgets. If there's any articles that you're interested in, please click through. You'll be able to go and read the article. Thanks very much for doing that. There's also video ads on all the pages. They open out within the content and then they close back up again when you've watched them. Thanks so much for getting involved. Thanks for doing that. So we're going to start off with 500 millibar height anomalies, broken down into weekly periods. The first weekly period going from the 15th to 22nd of May. This, of course, from the JMA. So blue is extrapolating to low pressure, orange, yellow, red extrapolating to high pressure. And what we see for the coming week, the week that we're in, is I've got quite a deep trough of low pressure to the north and the northeast of the country, a ridge out to west and the southwest. The jet stream is going like that through the country and generally to the south a little bit of the country. So that's a cool and unsettled type scenario. We're on a sort of northwest to southeasterly trajectory with the jet stream, and it's not inspired, not going to be a complete washout because the ridge is relatively close to the south and southwest, so it should protect us to some degree, but it is unsettled and it's quite cool as well. It's a pretty good representation of what we've got coming up. Now, going out to the next week, this takes us from the 22nd to 29th of May. Still the same sort of picture, although the trough is actually going more to the east. So if anything, this is probably going cooler, actually. We've got low pressure out to the east. We've got a ridge through the central part of the Atlantic, the jet stream and the flow going like that. So we're on the cool side of the jet there. We've got high pressure to the west and low pressure to the east. Again, it's not a washout of a situation. There won't be loads of rain coming through that, but it is cool because the air will be coming down more or less from a northerly direction, actually going out into the final week of May. So again, it's not great. It's not a washout of a week by any means, but it is certainly on the cool side. And of course, with the trough to the east of the country, it would be unsettled. It would be mixed and changeable. And then we go through to the final two weekly periods, going from the 29th of May through to the 12th of June. And we see very little change, actually. The signal is a bit weaker, as it always is, through the last two weekly charts, as you're going out into the extended range. So the colours always get less intense as the signal becomes weaker, but overall it's the same sort of idea with the ridge through the central part of the Atlantic. The trough is to the northeast and the east of the country. The jet stream is going probably like that. So again, very little change really going off into the start of June. It does look quite cool at the very least on that scenario. Again, not desperately wet, not a washout of a situation, but changeable and cool. Really sums it up for the coming month if we take the JMA at face value. Let's confirm that by having a look at the mid-latitude view. We can see how the temperatures are stacking up with these charts. So for the first week period, again, this is the week that we're in, the 15th to 22nd of May. We have the ridge out to the southwest of the country, the trough up to the north and the northeast, of course, with the jet stream on that northwesterly trajectory. So the temperature anomaly for the coming week is coming out cooler than average. And let's just see what the rainfall is doing. That's coming out near normal, maybe a little bit drier than average in the south, but a bit wetter than average up in the north. So as I say, it's not a washout of a period coming up. It's just generally changeable and quite cool as well. If we have a look at how the temperatures and precipitation stack up for the second weekly period, this one, remember, going from the 22nd to the 29th of May, again, the rainfall is coming out near normal, maybe a little bit drier than average. So once again, backs up the idea it's not a washout of a period by any means. The temperature anomaly, though, is solidly cooler than average, solidly in those blue colours, very significantly cooler than average week coming up once again. And then if we have a look at the final 2 weekly period to see how the temperatures stack up going through to the start of June. Actually takes from the 29th of May to the 12th of June. So what we find then is that again the temperature anomaly comes out colder than average, cooler than average in those blue colours quite widely across the country. So a very cool period coming up with temperatures solidly below average, but not wet. The rainfall anomaly actually comes out a bit drier than average. So cool and dry, really, or cool and changeable, but not desperately wet, is what we're looking at in terms of the JMA anyway, for the coming month. That's quite an unusual combination at this time of the year. Normally if you get it cold, it'll often be wet, and if it's dry, it'll often be quite warm. So that's an unusual combination for summer, to have it relatively dry, but also quite cool. The CFS-V2 looks like this. Again, these are 500 millibar heights broken down to week periods. So the first week period going from the 14th to the 29th of May. And it's identical to the JMA. These two models, the CFS-V2 and the JMA, have aligned very, very nicely over the past few weeks. They've been performing really well. I don't know what's happened, whether there's been some sort of upgrades that the two models have done. But it's amazing how in line they are for the coming monthly period. Very impressed with what's going on with these two models at the moment. So for the coming week, we find high pressure again down to the southwest. The low pressure is up to the north and the northeast. The jet stream is on that northwest to southeasterly type trajectory. So it's cool and it's unsettled most in the north. It's driest down to the south and to the southwest. The next week period, going from the 21st of May to the 27th, sees the high pressure out to the west of the country, very much in line with the JMA. We've probably got some sort of trough to the east. Again, the jet stream is going rather like that, so it'd be a cool week. Again, with the high pressure quite close to the west, it's not a wet week. It could be unsettled, particularly to the east, but it's not a washout of a week by any means, just rather on the cool side. And that pattern continues into the start of June, so it goes from the 28th of May to the 3rd of June. Again, the trough is to the east in over Scandinavia. The ridge is out to the west and push up a little bit towards Greenland and Iceland, so the jet stream goes like that. It would be a cool week, and most unsettled probably in the east. And then the final weekly period, it shows a bit of a change. This one will be taking us from the 4th to the 10th of June. What we see here is pretty good signs of northern blocking. The ridge is up around Greenland and Iceland, also extending up towards northern Scandinavia and western Russia. And then there's low pressure, by the look of it, running underneath it to the south of the country. So the flow with that is probably going easterly. That could be warmer. We could be starting to drag in some warmth from the continent, but it could also be very unsettled. Depends how deep these areas of low pressure are. Because it's week 4 on this model, it's a fairly weak signal, so the colours aren't all that intense. But if you've got high pressure around here, and you've got low pressure going underneath it through that sort of zone, then it can become very wet, particularly across England and Wales. That sort of shades of what happened in 2007 a little bit with the washout that we've had. Now, hopefully we won't see anything nearly as dramatic as that, but it is always a little bit concerning when you get sort of high pressure to the north and hints of low pressure running underneath it to the south in summer. That can be a little bit on the concerning side. So we'll have to wait and see on that one. But if the flow does go sort of easterly, southeasterly, at the very least, we could start to lift up the temperatures. The temperature anomalies with CFS-V2s look like this. So for the 14th to the 20th of May, again, in those green curves, going to be a cooler than average week coming up. The 21st to the 27th of May, cooler than average again. Although not quite as bad as the first week, but not much to choose between it, and both weeks are looking cooler than average. So that will give us our first colder than average month since August 2014. The next weekly period from the 28th of May to the 3rd of June, so going off into the start of summer, is cooler than average. And then the final weekly period, remember this when we get the high pressure sort of over the north and the hints of the low pressure going underneath it, but with the flow going easterly. The final weekly period does warm up a bit. We're only going up to sort of average temperatures, but it is indicative of a change beginning to take place with the wind direction shifting off the continent. Could be turning wetter through that week for 10th of June, but temperatures showing signs of starting to stage a recovery. Notice all of this red with the equatorial Pacific, by the way. That is the developing El Nino, and of course that's the big story in the media at the moment. This is how the temperatures look from the CFS V2 in terms of the city temperature graph from for Birmingham from the website weatherweb.net. You can find a link to WeatherWeb on the links page. Notice that through most of the rest of May, temperatures are suppressed. This is the 1st of June just here, and temperatures really are coming out quite cool through a major period. Going through to the start of June, we do get a little bit of a recovery in those temperatures, but only sort of back to average. This is 18 Celsius just here, and that's about where you would expect temperatures to be at the start of June. So a little bit of a recovery takes place early in June, but only up to average. And then through the middle part of June, this is the 11th to the 21st just here, we do get quite an increase in the temperatures then. So our first sort of warm spell, proper warm or even hot spell of the summer takes place through the middle part of June. Temperatures going up to 27 degrees, perhaps that seems to be 80s Fahrenheit. Although into the second half of the month, say this 21st of June, just here, we find the temperatures dropping back down again, and they look like staying quite cool then into the end of the month. So one sort of big push up in the temperatures sometime around the middle of the month, but overall temperatures through the next month also coming out on the cool side. The 500 millibar height anomalies for the next 3 months from website weatherweb.net look like this, and these charts change daily, by the way, so if you go back, have a look tomorrow, this will probably look a little bit different, but you should look at this every day and sort of average out the scenarios as they're appearing. So the first month is the rest of May, and we find this trough of low pressure to the east, the ridge is out to the west. It's a summation really of what we've been looking at with the CFS V2 and the JMA, the jet stream going like that, so it's cool. And it's quite unsettled, not a washout, but it's quite unsettled. The next week, the next monthly anomaly, I should say, is for June. This one shows the ridge coming closer to the country, so it's just centred just out to the west. Still probably quite cool, and that was backed up by what we saw on the temperature graph for Birmingham. Still probably quite cool because high centred just to the west, but even so, it's a bit better for June, and if high pressure can get centred over the country for a week or so, then we could lift up the temperatures. And then finally, the anomaly for July, and this one is quite concerning, shows the high pressure really over the top of the pole, over Greenland, and there's a trough of low pressure underneath it. So as I was saying, when you get that in the summer, northern blocking and then low pressure going underneath it, it's not normally a very good signal. It can all turn very wet on that sort of scenario. But that's for July, and of course it's a long way off, so we'll worry about that when we get a bit closer to the time. For the coming month, it looks like we're going to be seeing temperatures really quite depressed for the rest of May, so increasingly likely that we're going to have our first cooler than average month since August 2014. Going off into June, there isn't a great deal of change being signalled by the models really for the start of June. Could warm up a bit as we get through beyond the first week of the month. We've got to watch out for whether we start getting low pressure travelling underneath these areas of high pressure though into June, because that can be a signal for things to turn increasingly wet. So although temperatures might push up a bit as we get through into June, it might get a bit wetter as well. So not a great outlook for the coming month, but these models are all highly experimental, so don't take it too seriously. And of course tomorrow we're doing a week ahead forecast, which is with tried and tested shorter range models. So we'll come back for that tomorrow. That's all for now. Thanks for watching.